Fuak 2 Province, Vietnam, 1968. The jungle did not echo. It absorbed sound. It swallowed it whole. Every step, every breath, every whispered word disappeared into leaves and damp earth. Silence here was not empty. It had weight. It pressed against the ribs and made even experienced men feel watched, hunted. EASUREDA 5-man Navy SEAL reconnaissance team call sign. Quote, Zero had been operating deep inside NV, a controlled territory for 48 hours. Their mission was clean and precise on paper. A textbook hit and fade operation. Insert quietly under cover of darkness. Observe enemy movement along the Hat-Ditch corridor. Confirm logistics routes, then extract before first light. No contact, no engagement, no trace, but jungles do not respect plans. A forgotten Claymore tripwire, likely abandoned weeks earlier by a retreating VC unit. Detonated beneath the rear scout, the blast was not fatal, but it was violent enough, loud enough, to rip through the canopy like a warning scream. Birds exploded from the trees. Echoes died instantly. But the message carried. Everything changed within minutes. Movement rippled through the jungle. Not rushed, not chaotic, but deliberate. Radio intercepts suggested the NVA had already begun triangulating their position. Experienced units, disciplined formations. By mid-afternoon, the SEALs were boxed in, small arms fire probing from multiple directions. Distant at first, then closer, cutting off paths one by one. Every route forward felt watched. Every withdrawal option evaporated. Then the monsoon arrived. Early rain hammered the triple canopy. Mist rolled in thick and heavy. Visibility collapsed to almost nothing. Air support was grounded. Extraction windows vanished. The jungle became a sealed chamber. No sky above, no stars, no moon. Just darkness and rain and soundless pressure. 5 men, 1 wounded, 2, with only a single full magazine left. The enemy was no longer testing them. They were preparing to close, slowly, patiently. With the confidence of hunters who knew their prey, could not escape. Lieutenant Dan Kessler, the team leader, took inventory in his head. No flares, no extraction signal. Number air support, only perimeter claymores. Discipline, spacing, and darkness. SEALs were trained to move, to strike and vanish, to hunt. Tonight they were doing the opposite, holding ground, waiting. Surviving, they were no longer the hunters. They were being hunted. The silence that followed. Quote 1. Petty Officer Miguel Cruz whispered while reloading behind a twisted root wall, slick with rain and moss. His voice barely existed, swallowed immediately. Kessler did not respond. Not because he was calm, but because for the first time he was unsure. Uncertainty was rare for him. Dangerous too. A short burst of AK fire cracked to the west. Then nothing. The silence that followed felt heavier than gunfire. It pressed inward, made breathing feel loud. Unnatural. Then came a single shot, low, controlled. Suppressed. Not an M16, not an AK, something else. The team froze. These men were not inexperienced. Shadow 6 had seen fire before. Kessler had led raids across the Mekong Delta. Spoke fluent Vietnamese, read terrain instinctively. Under fire he never hesitated. Cruz was his second. Raised in tight streets and tighter fights, deadly in close quarters. Riley the corpsman had hands that never shook. Carlson and Henley were younger but steady. Disciplined still. SEALs were not designed for static defense. Their doctrine was speed and disappearance. Not holding a shrinking perimeter in a jungle. With no sky and no support, at 0210 hours someone whispered what everyone felt. They are not. Rushing. Kessler nodded. That means they are confident. The perimeter. Claymores remained untouched. That was the signal. The enemy was not desperate. They were circling. Waiting for exhaustion, fear, mistakes. Then another suppressed shot echoed faintly through the rain. followed by a dull, heavy sound. A body hitting wet ground. Crews looked at Kessler. That was not one of ours. Kessler stared into the dark. Whatever was out there had just killed an NVA soldier, and it did not want to be seen 2 kilometers to the west. 2 kilometers away, a 5-man Australian SAS patrol was already embedded deep in the jungle. They had inserted 3 nights earlier, under complete darkness, using a stealth landing zone known only to them, and a single RAF pilot who had flown Borneo before Vietnam. Their mission was simple in wording, almost impossible in practice. Locate an enemy logistics trail feeding the Hat Ditch corridor. Map movement. Identify command flow, then disappear without contact. Sergeant Mick Blue Roden led the patrol. A veteran of Borneo, a man who treated every leaf like a warning. He spoke rarely, pointed often, waited longer than most men could tolerate. Corporal Payne was the lead scout. A tracker who read footprints like language, could tell weight fatigue and fear from the ground alone. Signalman Terry Sparks had not transmitted in over 36 hours. Radio silence was survival. But he listened constantly. Just before dawn, Sparks caught something unexpected, an American emergency frequency. Short range, fragmented, urgent, panicked. Someone was in deep trouble. Roden raised a closed fist. The patrol froze, then vanished into foliage so completely that even the jungle seemed unaware. Payne found the tracks quickly. American boots, small unit, erratic movement, fatigue visible in the spacing. Then the second layer appeared. Enemy tracks, wide spacing, encirclement pattern. They are being herded. Roden studied the terrain carefully. If the Americans continued east, they would be forced into a narrow gully. Steep sides, thick vegetation, a perfect kill zone. A textbook NVA ambush. No words were spoken. Roden pointed northeast. Payne smiled faintly. The ghost work begins. The Australians did not rush. They never did. Speed was noise. Patience was power. The first enemy scout disappeared without a sound. No shot, no struggle. He was simply gone. Then another, then another. Absence spreading like infection. The NVA commander felt it before he understood it. Men were missing. Radio checks went unanswered. Something was wrong. A sweep was ordered. Several soldiers moved to investigate. Only some returned, shaken, bleeding, unable to explain what they had encountered. Their confidence cracked. The jungle no longer belonged to them. Claymores were subtly repositioned. Enemy traps were turned against them. Sounds were mimicked on the wrong flank. Movement was suggested where nothing existed. Fear began to replace discipline. This was not chaos. This was surgery. My early morning whispers replaced commands. Confidence bled away. Roden checked his watch, then gave a single silent signal. 6 claymores detonated in a tight arc. Green fire and steel ripped through the trees. Screams rose briefly, then vanished. The jungle swallowed them whole. Phoenix Sparks transmitted one word on a narrow burst. 12. The SEALs understood instantly. Lieutenant Tex Ramirez recognized the pattern. That was not American doctrine. That was Australian, ghost work, surgical, precise. He did not hesitate. The SEALs surged forward with controlled violence. Grenades first, then movement, bounding fire. A pivot, not a retreat, turning defense into escape. The enemy broke, caught between forces they could not see, unable to locate, unable to fight above them. The SAS moved like shadow. Radio operators were removed first. Command collapsed. Coordination died. A daisy chain of claymores erased 2 regrouping squads. When it ended, there was no return fire. Only smoke and silence. This time the enemy was running extraction and aftermath. By morning, the enemy force was shattered. No longer a unit, just scattered men fleeing in different directions. Ramirez gave the signal. The SAS laid rearguard ambushes with calm precision. The first pursuit unit vanished in a sequence of explosions, and one final clean shot. The Huey punched through the canopy. Green smoke rose. Rotor wash tore leaves from branches. The sound felt unreal after so much silence as the last seal climbed aboard. He looked. Back he saw nothing, only jungle, only shadow debrief. The question came later, under a flickering bulb. How did you break contact? The answer was simple: we did not. The Australians did. Captain Jim Warren arrived quietly. No display, no ceremony. He answered what he chose and left the rest unsaid. The SEALs learned something that night. War was not always about firepower or aggression. Sometimes it was about absence, patience, never being seen. No medals were requested. No paperwork followed. The Australians melted back into the jungle, preparing for the next patrol, and somewhere in Vietnam, shadows moved differently than before.